Yo, what's up guys, it's Nick and welcome back to GTA. Now, before we start with today's adventure, I realize that this video is fashionably late. This is because I made an entire video that I just can't upload. The video before this was going to be a Red Dead video that I wasn't able to complete because the damn thing just won't export correctly. I have tried to fix it for a solid week and I just can't. I would have to re-edit the whole thing and I'm sorry, I'm just not doing that. I don't care what you say, I'm not spending another 10 hours on that bullshit. The worst part is I have to now cancel the series as a whole now because I can't just skip a chapter. But I'm gonna stop ranting now because I'm sure my audience retention rate has already hit the fan and we're gonna get into the video. So something very unique happened at the beginning of the new day in Los Santos. I randomly happened to be flying around in my dodo as you do, and I noticed a man of unreasonably small stature floating above the water stranded. I decided I would have to fly by and pick him up, and when I did, he was very thankful. He told me that his name was Mordecai Percival Bartleby, and I decided to fly around the city very low to the ground to make him petrified right off the bat. We flew around for a few minutes before I got lightheaded and we had to make an emergency landing. After the unfortunate end to our flight, I picked him up and we immediately got into our first shootout with the cops, and it was pretty cinematic. We tried to do this thing where one person shoots a rocket and the other shoots a flare to redirect the missile. We did this and tried to kill the cops with it, and it just failed horrendously. We drove around listening to music for like the next 15 minutes until we found something very peculiar. Apparently a bunch of submarines washed up from the shore and somehow traveled to the mainland. We went to question some suspicious guys we saw who happened to be locals. We pulled them over and they were truly quite the group. We have two skin suit guys, a level 3 gas station robber, and Agent 47 armored up. When questioned about the event, I was kicked in the balls, which caused me to erupt like a volcano and end up on Fail Army. When I respawned, I ran back to the group only to discover a mosh pit. I told them to stop fighting and be civil, and upon breaking up the fight, I broke into a nasty boogie. This evolved into a dance fight that was so crazy, Mordecai got blown up by some modded laser and I fought the skin suit to death. But I didn't learn my lesson from last time and felt the power of God yet again. This was quite the chaotic party and could have an entire series explaining it all, but it ended with me and Mordecai fleeing in a car rather quickly after causing a fire, and a SWAT team came into the mix, not exactly pleased. After we escaped the law and got back into the city, Mordecai and I picked out some fashionable go-karts and decided we would terrorize the city in them, kind of like Mario and Luigi, except they discovered drugs at a young age. After shooting many peaceful civilians on our Sunday drive, we ended up at the root of my issues, Grove Street. This place was bad to me at a young age, and it's time I get back on my childhood bullies. Probably not the best way to handle an issue like this, but surely a wholesome one. I finally killed my demons, and I felt resolved. We then escaped to the LS River, where I dipped my toes in and got multiple STDs. Some of the leeches are still on my shins to this day. Mordecai then decided he would play God and drive a jetpack around, and he paid dearly. All the citizens of Los Santos know that I'm the only man that can bend reality. I even taunted him after his tremendous failure, boosting into the air like I'm going to the moon. It wasn't quite a successful mission though, because when I tried to land, I ended up like Mordecai. When I respawned, we found that someone had a hit on Mordecai and he took a brutal fall. Mordecai isn't exactly a forgiving man though, and the hitman driving the truck turned into a burnt hot dog. Next, Mordecai told me I was looking too snazzy and I changed up my outfit for war attire. When I asked him why, he told me he had some unfinished business and winked at me. I tried to hide my erection and drove around on my Manchez Scout. After some sick wheelies, Mordecai picked me up in a Valkyrie and we rode off into the hills. I asked no questions after seeing a big gun and started to mess shit up. We are just on a warpath today and nothing can stop us. We eventually reached our destination and I found that it was the cannibal camp. I asked him why this place and he told me that they had kidnapped him as a small child, and while I was kicking it in Grove Street, he was here always being harassed by Big Uncle Bernard. So I started to really get into it, committing some war crimes and killing all the cannibals. We then noticed that the helicopter was losing juice and we had to land, getting up close and personal with some of the more liberated fellows. Then, having no place to run, we were cornered by the police and stood on this little stage they had show and tell on, having our final holdout. This wasn't exactly the plan, but hey, a shootout is a shootout. We held off for a good while until we began to run out of bullets and started to feel overwhelmed. It seemed the war was only beginning and we weren't gonna win with just 2 men. So we went the only way available, which was back, and we parachuted into the road. Well, I say we, but Mordecai took a bit of a fall on the way down. But no fear, he only had to catch his breath and he was on his way again. I also miraculously lost the cops, and that's not because they killed me 30 seconds beforehand. We were still very much on the run, fugitives to the state. Although I think at this point if someone caught us, Elon Musk would have to pay out of pocket to give them their reward. We swiftly made our escape in a helicopter and we flew into the sunset. Now we both had killed old enemies on the same day and we were feeling pretty damn good. We realized that this wasn't enough though, and we felt fantastic, invincible even. We headed over to the military base, thought to ourselves, and thought it would be a good idea to steal some damn jets and cause chaos. After my 7 minutes of flight experience, I was starting to feel like a master of the air and I was doing some clean stunts. But my luck ran out when I made the decision to fly through this tunnel and blew up without even going inside. I'm sure there's a sex joke that could be made somewhere in there with the plane going inside the tunnel, but I'll control myself this time. After I respawned, I didn't know what to do, and so I wandered around picking my nose like a bored goalie at a first grade soccer game. Things heated up real quickly though when the bridge became a war zone and I was in the middle of it. There was even a fucking submarine, and this just stressed me out, seeing as the day had been stressful already and I now had to deal with this shit. I had gotten a buzzard soon after to see the chaos ensuing, but Mordecai and I thought it would be funny to see who would chicken out first. Needless to say, we have big balls. Also, I may or may not have panicked when I saw a potential threat in the sky, and I may or may not have caused his death. Hey, I mean, at least it was cinematic. And upon further speculation, he didn't even die. He swam back to shore in questionable clothing for a pilot. We were shocked by this and got nervous when he just stared at us while we were trying to be friendly and boogie down. To counteract any potential threats, I placed a sticky bomb on his back, and for some reason, he felt threatened by this and blew me up instead. After this, Mordecai and I had a long conversation and both agreed on leaving from the war. So we ran over the dude who had all of a sudden decked the hell out in armor and escaped back to the city. Once we got back to the great city, I took out one of my planes to continue on my goal of being the greatest pilot alive. I flew around for a few minutes, maneuvering around some buildings, before I had the great idea of landing on Maze Bank Tower, a feat I have yet to complete. I didn't quite make it to the top though, and I got wedged in a very tight spot. And it didn't get better either, as I began to catch fire as well. I called Mordecai to save me as the blood rushed to my head very quickly. Luckily the flame didn't last that long though, but I was still not exactly in a comfortable position. Eventually Mordecai came to the rescue in a helicopter, but when we were trying to figure out what to do, the sun became slippery and I didn't manage to get out in time. After that disaster, we once again got in our Valkyrie to tour the countryside, but we didn't notice beforehand that it wasn't exactly in top shape. Because of this, we made another emergency landing and it actually went quite well this time. Although we had survived the fall, we ended up in the middle of buttfuck nowhere and we had no idea if there were threats nearby. We ended up in this abandoned trailer park with a suspicious amount of polished motorcycles and many blown up cars. Since nobody was home, we made the mature decision to borrow the vehicles and went on our way. In the process, we also bombed an innocent man's trailer and did the world's first melee drive-by. We also might have gotten a little angry when someone bumped into Mordecai's car as he was turning, and we showed him that it's not exactly in his best interest to fuck with us. After a long time of mass murdering, we got tired and went to a motel to sleep for the night. When we found out other people were there with us, we were not too happy and we told them to vacate the premises. They had too much heroin in their veins though, and they ignored us, which wasn't the best decision. After a nice peaceful rest among the bodies, we were back on the road continuing our genocide. Soon after our rampage had continued, we realized that the authorities weren't as excited with our actions and we drove to the airport to take a plane. This didn't last very long though, as I wanted to show off and drift on a building. Unfortunately, I am very incompetent and we blew up. History really does repeat itself, because if you think really hard about it, this exact same thing happened like 2 minutes ago. At this point, we were out of ideas and frankly, we were bored as shit. So we took a Mini Cooper and just kept killing people. Yeah, maybe I should see a therapist or something. This is getting out of hand. The fun had to end though, because the cops decided that we were too much of a liability, and so they sent military on us. This was unexpected and we had to hold our ground in the mean streets of Los Santos, right next to the Cluckin' Bell. The mercenaries did give up though, as we shot rockets on them and they said fuck that. And for our final adventure with the cops, actually this time, we wanted to get on the roller coaster while we were wanted. We soon found out that this was not possible, as the amusement park did not cater to criminals for some reason. Or maybe they just closed down because of the gunshots and bodies everywhere. Who knows? But since we couldn't get on the roller coaster, we kind of just laid on top of it, which didn't really work on the end and we lost. Finally, the infinite amount of police officers had won the fight. And with that long and convoluted adventure, that is the end of the video. Now again, I apologize for the amount of time this video took to get out, but there would have been a video in between if that Red Dead video hadn't been such a bitch to me. But if you like this video or have any feedback, please leave it in the comments, and with that, I will see you all in the next video.